Hello, everyone, and welcome to Saturdays and Seltzers, the most Bussin podcast, and also the only podcast that has out pizza the hut. So these are both testimonials per Anthony, the Red Sox fan, but those are all that matters. So Kendra is concussed this week, so prayers up, pour one out for her. But I am joined by the lovely Maki Jenner, who is back for a second time. I work with her at Lacrosse. She's a writer and analyst over there, as well as a TSN contributor, big TV star.
Yeah, I'm super excited to be back. I definitely cannot replace Kendra in any way, but I will do my best to represent her in the most Mackie way possible.
Yes, that's all we want. We couldn't ask for more. So How are we doing? How are things?
Yeah, good. This week has been very busy. I just moved back home from school to try and do things online and just kind of like find myself a little bit more with my like quarter life crisis at age 20, as we do. So yeah, so just trying to figure everything out. But honestly, other than that, things have been pretty good. So yeah.
Exciting stuff. Yeah, we're all on the self-discovery.
Absolutely, always.
So to kick things off, as everyone here knows, or maybe you haven't listened before, we do HLH, which is your high of the week, your low of the week, and your hero. So I'll start off my high. I'm sorry to my parents and my sister that are listening to this. I am officially moving out of my house. This is very exciting. Not till June though, so we still have some time, but I'm excited to finally get that figured out.
Yeah.
My low would be so tomorrow is my first weekend night off since January, and it's supposed to snow. And I made all these big plans, and the last time I had a weekend night off, there was a blizzard. So maybe weekends just like aren't for you. I just am not supposed to have them, I guess.
Yeah.
On the same note, my hero of the week was 65 degrees yesterday, and even though I was at school for most of it, it was just like a breath of fresh air. I was like, my mental health has been saved.
Yeah, seriously.
So that was my HLH. How about you?
Yeah, okay. So my high was I found a new show on Netflix because obviously I'm a big Euphoria stan. But it only comes out every Sunday. So I'm like, what am I gonna watch in between then? So I found this show called Inventing Anna on Netflix, and it's like about this investigative journalist who finds this girl who is like a scam, like a con artist, but she like built herself up as this big socialite in New York City. And as like an aspiring journalist, there's like the main character is an investigative journalist. I'm like, oh my God, this is so interesting. And it's just there's all these like twists and turns and like in her relationships and stuff. So that was definitely high because it's been keeping me busy.
That sounds good.
But then as well as keeping me busy, my low was it's midterm week at school. So last night I wrote my grammar midterm, which was so fun.
A grammar midterm?
Yeah, I have to take an applied grammar class for my journalism minor. And I honestly thought I was pretty good at grammar until I took this class. And I'm like, I really don't understand anything anymore. So it's been really fun. And then my hero for the week is iced matcha lattes from Starbucks. Because my friend put me on the matcha trend, and it's actually so good.
It's really good. Like it doesn't look like it would be.
I know. Well, that's like my boyfriend's like, it's green. I'm like, yeah, and it tastes good. So yeah.
No, I love the matcha lattes from Starbucks. Though I will say I tried one that wasn't from Starbucks. It was just from like some random coffee place. Yeah. And I'm like, Starbucks definitely sweetens those up because this is not as good.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You got to put a little bit of sugar or something in there.
You need something in there.
Yeah.
All right. So it sounds like we're all having okay weeks.
Yeah.
I'm definitely. Like not amazing, not terrible.
Not terrible. Yeah.
So now we can get into the real fun stuff of the show, which is lacrosse. We have a lot of questions from people as well as just a lot of NLL talk in general. So why don't we just start off with, there's not a ton of PLL news right now. I know you mentioned there was the Hall of Fame announcements a couple weeks ago, and I know PLL just did announce today that they got the championship deal, which is exciting. That'll be cool.
Yeah. You know what's funny? I was thinking about this when I saw this posted this morning, and I was like, man, I used to, in high school, I would wear my Champion merch because that was like the only brand that would do like college gear that would ship to Canada. And
really?
So everyone was like, Champion, like what? Like everyone loved the Nike and the Under Armour and I'm like, yeah, Champion, like what about it? So I was like embarrassed and I would like roll my sleeves because I always have a little C here. And now it's like the hype brand that everyone loves and is expensive like and is like on, and I'm like, what happened? Like, okay, so maybe I'm a trendsetter or I don't know. So I'm like, well, now the PLL does it. So you're welcome, I guess.
I like at first thought of, because like you said, like for a while, Champion, like I feel like it was really big, like in our parents' time, like everyone wore it. And then it kind of just like died off again, like after the 90s. And I remember I would see it at like Walmart for like $5 or $10. So like we just have a bunch of them. And then randomly, just the last few years, it got so big. Like I think of like the like Visco girl.
Yes, seriously, it's everywhere. Like it's like on little display tables at like stores that you go into. It's like all their like Champion stuff. I'm like, God, if only I kept like all my stuff. I know. Yeah, it's insane.
But no, good for them. That's very exciting.
Huge. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm excited to see the jerseys.
Me too. I think it's going to be really fun, and I think it will bring more like aesthetic people into the PLL. Hopefully,
they'll see the merch and they come running.
They're like, "Yep, here we go. Sign me up."
Yeah, that was pretty much it for any big PLL news in the last couple weeks. There hasn't even been any. I feel like for a while there was a lot of trades, especially the Cannons, but things have slowed down. It seems like.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously with the NCAA season kind of picking up, I feel like probably just almost like scouting, just looking at like possible prospects for their college draft and everything. But yeah, other than that, it's kind of been slow, which is fine. There's a lot of lacrosse going on, so
there's so much going on.
Yeah.
And all alone, we've had plenty to talk about. Obviously, the big news out this week was commissioner stepping down, Jessica Berman's assuming the role. I think it's awesome to just see a female in that role, like just like bare basis. That was my first thought, like even if it's just for the time being.
Absolutely. No, I totally agree. Nick Sakevich has done a ton for the league in his 6 seasons, obviously like with the TSN and ESPN deals this year, like absolutely huge for the sport. But I think with Jess kind of coming in to assume that role, like she's worked with the NHL before, like she's done other stuff with big leagues, so she knows how it works, and she gets it. Like she posts pictures at like every NLL game she's at, and she's like so invested in what the players are doing, and it's really awesome to see as like females in sports media too, like just to see that that's attainable, or there's someone that's gonna fight for whatever's going on in the league. So I think that's awesome, even if you're right for the time being, but she's awesome. I talked to her a while back, just when she first assumed the role of deputy commissioner, and she's just fantastic person, like knows what she's doing, and I think it'll be really good for the league for the time being.
No, yeah, she seems it. I feel like there's like certain people that you can just tell like really love what they're doing or really invested in their work, and like you said, she posts pictures everywhere. She's always promoting all these things. And like it sounds so little when like someone's like working for the league, but you really don't see that a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. No, so I think it's exciting for everyone, and I've really only heard positive things about her, so it's going to be exciting.
And obviously, like you said, Nick's done a great job in his tenure. Like I'm still a new fan, but like just alone, like you said, ESPN, TSN, I feel like just makes it so much more accessible, and just like the growth that it's seen over the course of like the last 5 or 6 years in general.
Absolutely. I know. Yeah, it's definitely taken big steps, so it's going in the right direction.
Yes, exactly. It's all going up.
Yep.
So moving on to just kind of recapping week 12, there's a lot of questions, a lot of things to be talked about there. It was a busy week. My first question was just kind of something that I noticed was, and I know we actually talked about it a little bit in our Slack group chat, was do we think Saskatchewan makes the playoffs? I know they just added Penny for a goaltender, which should like add on and help them a bit, but do we think they need to make any more moves at the trade deadline, or is it just kind of like just hope for the best over these next stretch of games?
Yeah, honestly, like you said, the chatter was just, is it too late? Like these things kind of could have been in motion earlier in the season. Like we're in week 13 now and things haven't really gone up for them, so it's like they could have maybe taken that time before to make some of these decisions. I know we've kind of been talking, maybe they pick up some unrestricted free agents for more like offensive firepower before it's really crunch time, but I feel like they just haven't clicked. And anyone you talk to before this season, the rush would have been probably a given for playoffs, and people would have thought that they would have made a run for the championship this year just because of how successful they've been in the past. And honestly, I thought their game against Colorado last week, they looked a lot better. Like I think they looked more like themselves and things were kind of clicking. Like Littner and Mark Matthews on offense was really fun to watch, but it's just like, is it enough right now? And is there enough time to kind of make a complete switch? Obviously, there's still like 10 more weeks. So who knows? But you're right. The trade deadline is coming up in like 3 weeks. So they only really have that amount of time to figure out what their roster is going to look like before moving into potential playoff picture. So I don't know. Hopefully things with Penny will look a little bit better this week. I mean, we get to see the rematch between the two teams that played last week. So maybe there's a difference there, but it's definitely a tough one that I know has been on everyone's radar this entire season.
Yeah, no, like you said, it is tough because I feel like their offense, like on paper, everything, it should be like they're putting up crazy numbers every game when you look at it. But like you said, it's just something's not like gelling as a unit, because individually they look like they all should be putting up these crazy numbers, and it's just like something's not clicking there. And then like they have Adam Shoot in the net, and I think anything's going downwards from what they had, but I don't even think he's been that bad in net. Like it's been kind of
it just hasn't been working.
There's just like something's not going right for them there. And like their defense looks good. Like you said, they looked a lot more like themselves, I think, entirely that last game against Colorado. And they've had a lot of 1-game losses now. And I feel like it's kind of reached the point where it's like, okay, like you came this close, but what do you need to push yourself and get those extra 2 goals? Like what is holding you back?
For sure. Absolutely. No, it's just been tough to kind of watch because they were expected to be successful. And I know it's kind of let a lot of people down, and just knowing how good Saskatchewan has been and could be, but just isn't. So we'll see what happens this weekend, but
I feel like this weekend's kind of the like turning point for them, which I feel like we've also been saying the last like 4 weeks for them, but this one actually
I know this is it though. This really one matters.
Another team in the Western Division, Vancouver, pulled off the win over Calgary 11-10. They've really stepped up, I think, in Mitch Jones' absence. I kind of thought once that we saw that he was going down for at least till April, that was their season pretty much. Like we know they have a lot of good individual players, but just like he was kind of that glue holding them all together. But they've really stepped up as a whole, and I was just wondering how you think they're going to fare the rest of the regular season, because they are in playoff position right now.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting you say that too, because at the beginning of the season, like I remember their first game, I can't remember who they played, but Mitch Jones basically single-handedly won the game. Like he literally made them come back and scored all of the goals to win. And so as soon as he got hurt, everyone was like, well, sorry, like I don't know what you want to do now. But not even just not having Mitch Jones, but in their game last weekend, they had Steve Fryer in net because Alexis Bouquet got put on COVID like right before the game. And then they also didn't have Tyrell Hammer Jackson at the face-off dot, which some people in the argument of does the face-off matter or not? Like I think it does because it gets you possession if you can capitalize. So, it could be a worry if you don't have those guys in your lineup, but they still manage to deal with that adversity and kind of step up in ways that you don't expect. Like Logan Chess has been really good. Owen Barker has been really good on defense, and he took that role at the face-off dot that people didn't really expect him to do that well, but he was successful, and it was really fun to watch them play. I think they played more team ball. I think when you have someone like Mitch Jones that you kind of rely on to do a lot of the offensive work, when he's not performing, you feel like it's all just going to go downhill. But now that they don't have him, they have to rely on everyone to do equally as much. And so they're not just looking at one person to be able to do it all. So I think that they've been playing a really good team ball game, which is really fun to watch. And the rest of the season, like they have a tough schedule. Like they have San Diego twice, they have Colorado, Albany, Toronto, Halifax, like all these big East and West teams. But they also have opportunity there to improve and to get some wins or at least some close games that I think can help them prepare, because you're right, they are in a playoff spot, and I think that they should be able to maintain that just with looking at the rest of the West Division.
Yeah, and you make a good point. Like they do have a lot of guys that like Keegan Ball like maybe gets overlooked in the mix of like, because you have so many offensive superstars in the NLL, but he is someone that like when him and Mitch Jones were playing together, I kind of saw them as like a duo there.
Yeah.
And now he's really just kind of like stepped up and become like their guy. Then you have like Logan Schuss. Obviously, Reed Bowering.
I can't believe I forgot him.
He's been insane. I'm like, I know I'm number one Jeff Teed stan, but right now he's my rookie of the year.
Yeah. No, for sure. And so, they've just kind of all been able to step up, and like, even like Adam Charlambides, who hasn't really played much box lacrosse, like he's really stepped up into this offensive role that they've put him in, and he's shining in his spot. And so Vancouver, I think, is a team that nobody really had too high of hopes for. But I think that they've really stepped it up, and like they look good. Like they look like a good team right now.
No, that's the thing. It's not even like they're winning these games. It's like, oh, they like just got out of this, or that was like luck. Like their first win after Mitch Jones went on the injury list was against Panther City. So I feel like a lot of people are just like, it's Panther City. This is their first year as a team, like whatever. But then they won against Saskatchewan, they won against Calgary now. I feel like they're on a good route, but like you said, they do have a very difficult schedule upcoming.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. It'll be fun to watch though. So I'm hoping to actually get to a game in the near future, because I'm in Victoria, so I just have to take a ferry boat over the ocean to get there. So I don't know. Hopefully, it would be fun to go and get to watch a game, because I haven't gone at all this season. So,
I forgot. Been at school. I was like, why haven't you? Yeah,
I know for sure. Yeah.
So speaking of Panther City, obviously, no one had super high expectations for them. They're a expansion team. It's their first year. But I thought despite the loss against Calgary on Sunday, it was kind of their strongest game. And look at the rest of their schedule for the regular season. Do you think at the very least we'll see another win out of this team? Because I feel like they're starting to I feel like they are starting to kind of gel with one another, actually. When you look at it, like, they're not winning games, but also everyone's so good.
Yeah, I know. I think they have a chance. I don't think they don't have too many big names on their schedule for the remainder of the season, which I actually think could be a good thing for them, because like you're saying, they are kind of starting to gel. And once you kind of get that going, like to just be able to keep that consistent is going to be really like good for them. Like they have Saskatchewan and Calgary on their schedule a couple times for the remainder of the season, which who knows how Saskatchewan will look after this weekend, but I think those are two teams that they could definitely put up a good fight against. They're a young team, they're a new team that are they're just struggling to find their groove, and I think that that's a common issue with newer teams. And I think they have a lot to look forward to. Like they have John Donville, who's the number one draft pick of last year, that's coming in to play with them next year, who will be phenomenal. And to watch him on offense with Jeremy Thompson and Will Malcolm and Patrick Dodds, like it will be a lot of firepower. And there are good moments that they have. Like they have really good defensive sets, or their power play looks good, or Patrick Dodds gets hot and he's just rolling. Like they have good moments. I just think it's hard, and they just have to understand, and fans too have to understand, you know, the growing pains. Like, this is their first year. This is a totally new city, new place, new fan base, new everything that, you know, they're not really used to. So, you know, I think their coaches and staff have done a good job of keeping the positivity and the lightness of it. And their social media people are quite funny, in my opinion,
oh my God, they're
doing
hilarious.
doing their little posts and memes and stuff. But I don't know. I think it'll get better. And I do think that I could at least see one win this season. I can see it.
I feel like they have all the building blocks to like do really well in the future. It's just like you said, there's growing pains. It's going to take a little bit. And I always like think you have the Seattle Kraken in the NHL where they are just like bottom of the barrel, whatever. But honestly, I've been comparing the two a lot, and I'm like, okay, Panther City is the one win. I'm like, in terms of NHL games, like Seattle Kraken might as well have one win.
Yeah.
I'm like, I feel like both teams are ones that like, honestly, Panther City is a lot more going for their future. Like, I don't think Seattle drafted so great with theirs.
Yeah.
Panther City, I feel like you said, like they are starting to connect with each other, and they're showing these flashes of like, okay, we know what we're doing. Like, we are one big unit, and it's going to go our way at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think I've grown up with Patrick Dodds like my entire life. Like, we played lacrosse against each other, and then have grown up and went to high school and everything. And, you know, watching him get to thrive in an environment like Panther City, I think on him, like, they get to start fresh with this team. Like, they get to set records. They get to have franchise first goals, first whatever, you know, they get to be at the top of their list. And I think that that's really exciting as, you know, new people, because they are getting some, you know, rookies and newer faces onto their roster, that it's exciting for them and it pushes them to be better. And then that as a collective will push everyone else to be better. So you're right. I think they are heading in the right direction. It's just the growing pains that come with
it. Yeah, it'll take a couple years probably, but I think they've got something good going on there.
Absolutely.
Then my last one, just for last week's recap, I just thought of something funny, and I know you were watching this game too, in the Buffalo Albany game, and all the games are scored on just one net. I just can't get over that. I don't know why. I just thought it was so funny and weird.
No, I know. I don't think I've ever seen that. I've watched so much lacrosse in my life, and I don't think I've ever seen that, like, ever. And I think the funniest part of it was that the NLL social was like, the first star of the night goes to the right net. Like, congratulations, you had a great performance. And I was like, honestly, like, that's just the weirdest statistic that I've ever seen in my whole life. So
I was like trying to work it to my team of the week article. I was like, I just need to get this stat in there somehow. Like, I just
yeah, for sure.
So moving on to just looking at to week 13 before we get into the questions. What do you have any hot takes or predictions for this weekend? They don't even have to be a hot take, but
I think that Saskatchewan will surprise people, and I think they'll beat Colorado. Back-to-back games are always tough, and it's hard to go. Like, we saw it with Toronto and Albany. I'm pretty sure like 2 weeks ago, maybe, or maybe it was Georgia and Albany. I don't know. They went back. Yeah, it was Georgia and Albany, and they went back, but they split the series. Like, it's just hard to go 2-0 against a team back to back. So I think that this new edition of Penny is going to maybe light a little bit of a spark, and I think that that's going to happen. I also think that the Philadelphia Halifax game is going to go into overtime. I just feel like those two teams are kind of battling it out in the East. Like, I feel like the top four in the East might as well just all be tied for first, and because they're just so good. And I don't know, I think it'll be a good game to watch this week. But yeah, I think the rest of them are probably going to go like as I would say predicted, but who knows? Honestly, who knows?
Well, so to games for watching this weekend, my game of the week was Saskatchewan versus Colorado for the same reason that you said. I just think it's going to be one that it's going to surprise a lot of people. I do think Saskatchewan will pull out the win just because one, they're so clearly extremely frustrated. Two, you're facing the same team a second weekend in a row. So it's just tough. They've already seen them recently. And then again, I just really think Saskatchewan's like, you can see it on their faces. They're so angry.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, my game to watch, I think, is that Thunderbirds Wings game. a good East battle that I think will be a really fun, intense, high scoring game. And like Halifax has just been on fire lately, so they're going to be really fun to watch. And Philly is just like a consistent team. Like they just kind of go with the flow and put out wins, and it's like nothing crazy, but it works for them. Mm-hmm. So I think that'll be a good one.
Yeah, that's the thing. I cannot get a read on the Philly team. I'm like,
same.
I can't figure out what it is that like is your particular like strength, what your big weakness is. Like the only thing I can ever see is okay, sometimes they struggle to play a full 60 minutes. Like they'll go on a hot streak and then it'll just like die out. But like so many guys that contribute that I can't even be like, oh, like it's just one guy on offense, just like it's just Kevin Crowley doing everything. Like there's so many people that contribute. So I just cannot figure them out.
Mm-hmm. I know. I'm right there with you.
So we got a lot of questions. Some of them funny, some of them just I didn't really understand. Let's get going with them. So the first one was, what do you prefer to watch? I'll just say field lacrosse or box lacrosse. I feel like I know your answer.
You know what? It's actually funny because I was talking about this with my parents the other day, and I was like, we had like 2 years of no box lacrosse to watch, and I forgot how much I love to watch that sport. Like I was so invested in the field game, and I was playing, and I was just so excited. But then when box finally was able to be played and I got to coach this summer, like my little brother's team, like it was just so exciting, and it's just so fast paced and high scoring. So I will say, honestly, sometimes it depends on the season because I don't like to pick favorites, but slightly box. Slightly.
See, I thought you were gonna be like, oh, box by like a country.
No, I don't know. I have an appreciation for both. Like, honestly, I just think that box is the more intense, high scoring. I don't know. The physicality brings a lot of people into it, so I like that aspect of it too.
Yeah. See, I feel like because I grew up playing field lacrosse, and then all I really knew was field lacrosse up until literally this year. So then I was like, oh, like I remember watching the first box lacrosse game. I just went on YouTube and watched. I think it's the Saskatchewan Halifax game from like 2019 or 2020, like February.
Yeah.
And I was just like, what the heck is going on?
Yeah. That's so funny.
I was like, oh, I know field lacrosse, so like I can figure this out. I was like,
yeah,
this is so different. But I honestly really enjoy it just because it reminds me, one, a lot of like hockey. And two, it's so fast paced. Like there's always like you have to always be watching.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know. I don't know what my pick would be there yet.
It's hard. It is hard.
Determined.
I know. It's hard.
So another question we got was regarding the PLL. I think the same person asked this actually like 3 times.
We'll get you an answer.
I'm like, I can't remember if it was multiple. I think it's the same person asking, why does the PLL do tour style instead of city based? And to my understanding, it's just because it is a newer league and they want to like get the sport out in all these places. Because I feel like it's city based. You saw with the MLL. Like I know here, like everyone's like, oh, Boston Cannons. But like if you went anywhere else, they'd be like, what is that?
Yeah. No, absolutely. I was going to say too, like, I think it's just to solidify a fan base before deciding where to locate teams. Like, I think they just like, they target some cities that are like non-traditional lacrosse areas too, which I think is really important for them to be able to grow the sport. And I think also, like, I think it makes it fun for fans to be able to pick a team without having like their home bias.
Yeah.
Like you said, like Boston, like obviously we know Boston people love their Boston sports. So it's like, you know, without having a Boston lacrosse team to cheer for, now they got to choose. So, so I don't know. It's just, I think it's a fun way to kind of go about it. And honestly, I don't know if like they'll get to the point where they can solidify like having cities, just because I feel like there's so many that would be so interested in having a professional field lacrosse team. But I think it's a good way to kind of get things started for them, honestly. Like I think it's a fun way to like a little traveling circus thing.
That's what I thought. I'm like, honestly, like I know probably their ultimate goal is to get the city base like that live, but like, I really like this tour stat. It makes it fun, and I know so many fans like travel for it. Like you can make a whole weekend out of it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely fun. Like I mean, when I got to go to DC for the finals. Like that was so fun just to go and see like how many people and like how many people weren't even from the area. Like, my family was from Philly. Like everyone was just from all over the place and wanting to watch. So definitely cool.
I will say it always interests me, like, because I feel like the Redwoods, they always stick out to me as someone that has such a big fan base.
I know.
And I'm like, how is everyone picking this team? Like, is it just because of college lacrosse? Like, is it all those fans coming over?
Yeah,
right. Like, I won't lie, I picked the Cannons.
Of course you did, Sarah. Come on, like, is that even a surprise?
Well, I watched the Boston Cannons growing up, so I guess I'll be a Cannons fan. And then it was the first weekend when they're here in Gillette. I remember I said something to someone on the team, and I was like, "Oh yeah, the Boston kids. Like, we are not the Boston Cannons. We're the Cannons.
We're just the Cannons."
Like, sorry.
Yeah. No, that's funny. Yeah, I think it's definitely fun to get to choose. But yeah, I know my dad loves the Redwoods too, and he always, whenever they're playing, he's just like, "Roll Woods," and I'm like, "Stop." Stop. It's okay. We know you like the Redwoods. You have your shorts and your shirt and everything.
They're so outspoken about it.
We're outspoken. They do love their team.
So speaking of fans and just kind of growing the sport, this is an interesting one. What's the outlook on the future popularity of lacrosse, and what do you think the sport as a whole needs to do if they want to join the like big four in terms of popularity?
Yeah, I think it's such a hard question because I think the big four are the big four because one, they've been around and established for so long, like they've been able to have a fan base for so long. Again, some of them are popular throughout the entire world, like soccer or hockey has big population, in Europe or in North America. So it's like, it kind of depends on that too. Like I think lacrosse is heading in the right direction with these TV deals, like even the PLL was able to do with NBC and Peacock over the summers. Like I think we just need to develop more of a fan base to get people interested in it. I don't think the population of lacrosse players is of concern. Like there's so many people that play lacrosse all over the place, and like these players that, like I talked to Callum Crawford, and he works in Georgia, or Oklahoma. Like he has a program in Oklahoma, which is somewhere where you don't really think of like a lacrosse hotbed, but we're kind of implementing it like the PLL does in these cities that don't really know much about it. So as soon as you kind of grow that fan base, then I think that it will kind of start to get up there. But also like what the PLL is doing, like they went to Japan, I think. And like I know Paul Rabel wants to go to Europe to try and promote like the field league as well. So it's like, getting it on a bigger stage, I think is the first step, but it's going to be hard, like it is a very niche sport. And because there is box and field, it's hard to get just like the game of lacrosse to that level.
So. I know. I never really thought about that. Yeah. Like it's like, which version do you want to like put on this big stage? Because you can put it like you said, the ESPN deal, the TSN deal, then like PL had NBC, like it's all these different platforms, but no one's getting like the prime time spots really, or like, unless you're already interested, it's like hard to find some of these like on a daily basis just to watch. But then it's like, okay, but what product do you want people seeing? Do you want box?
Absolutely.
Do you want field?
Yeah. And I think like for a lot of people, I just think box is like the easier one to get into, only because hockey, like I honestly, and basketball, like I think box lacrosse is such a combination of those sports that I know that like my teammates that I played basketball with in high school loved watching box games because it was so similar. Or like my friends that play hockey, like a lot of them played box and hockey, or now will watch box lacrosse because they understand it a bit more. And like, I don't think I've ever met someone that has watched a box game and been like, this is boring. Like, it's just so exciting and fun to watch. So I think that's like, to me, that's like the easier route, just because it has so many similarities to other sports. But then again, you can argue that with field lacrosse too, because I mean, the basics are similar, but yeah, I don't know, it's different.
I will say my sister has watched now she had seen field lacrosse just like growing up watching me play, but also that's not the most exciting level of it. So then I brought her to Gillette with me, and she's like, "This is so boring. Like, I'm not interested at all." I was like, "Well, you're not even like, giving it a chance, whatever." But then I'll be watching NLL games, and like, still, she's like, "No, like lacrosse isn't for me." But she'll like see a fight or something, like,
I'm like, okay, I'm watching now.
I'm like, that's right. You're paying attention. I can see you still standing here.
So funny. No, that's like, no, literally my boyfriend too. In the summer, I would like make him watch the PLL games with me, and he was like, I don't get it. And then now it's like, oh my God, like what NLL games on this week? Like, is there gonna be a fight? Like who? Like I'm like, I don't know. I guess we'll have to watch and see. So it's just funny to see how different people get into it.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, this could be a question that might get maybe some girls into it. Yeah. Which lacrosse team do you think could bench the most?
My answer is Halifax Thunderbirds, solely because Graham Hossick can probably bench my entire house. They call him the cyborg. And I think for that reason alone, just him as a sole person can probably bench the National Lacrosse League.
Okay, you're absolutely right about that, because I was thinking, well, I don't know, like everyone does a lot of conditioning, but nope, that
right?
That seals the deal. That is
behind it. Yeah.
Halifax Thunderbirds can bench the most.
Yeah, they absolutely can.
But this one is for a very specific person. Obviously. Which lacrosse team is the most bussin'? I know the Riptide responded, and I feel like that alone puts them up there already.
The Riptide, they just get it. Like they know that they're bussin'. They know that they're bussin', and they're gonna tell the world that they're bussin'. So yeah, why wouldn't they be the most bussin' team? They're with it. They get it. they're with the times. So I think unanimous decision.
It's gotta be the Riptide. I like also decided recently, I'm like, okay, I need to pick a favorite NLL team. And I decided it was the Riptide, since me and Kendra saw their one win so far this season, and they're just team. Like, how could I not be?
There you go. Absolutely.
Riptide, bussin'.
Absolutely bussin'. Certified.
Certifiably bussin'.
Yeah, they can trademark it in their bio if they want to. You have permission.
Riptide, now. If you're listening, you have our blessing. Okay, would you rather win a Stanley Cup or a Minto Cup?
Minto Cup. Next question.
Austin told me I can't say Stanley Cup, so also Minto.
Minto. Next question. Next.
Easy. Unanimous.
No thoughts. No thoughts. Yep.
Okay, what cities would you like to see the NLL expand to?
Yeah, so I actually thought about this a lot. And because I think there's so many that would be so good, but a lot of them I realized they've already been in. Like I lived in St. Paul, Minnesota for a while, and they had the Minnesota Swarm there, and my uncle played there. And such a cool sports town. Like they love their hockey, they love their football, like they're psychos. I went to a Vikings game, and they do their whole like skull. And I was like, what is happening? Like this is insane. So any sports team there will do well. So I think definitely go back to Minnesota. And then they were also already in Oregon, in Portland, and I think that that's a cool city because they don't have too many professional sports.
Yeah,
but I know that it's like a very active, forward-thinking town that I think would like kind of like a niche sport like lacrosse again to be there. Or like go back to Washington State. But then also I think like to add another like Southern team like in Jacksonville, or like in a Carolina.
Yeah,
because the Carolinas have a ton of sports, but you don't really see a lot of lacrosse there. Like obviously like Duke and UNC are like huge college teams, but like professionally, I think it would be really fun to have an NLL team there.
Yeah, see, my thought was definitely, I think Florida, just because I think the South is a place that like they surprise you. Like it doesn't sound like it, like especially Florida, like everyone's like, oh, they don't care about their sports teams. Like they do. They care.
They do. Yeah.
And if Kendra is on here, she would be screaming for her Jacksonville Jaguars and be like, thank you for saying that no one cares.
Yeah. We love our sports.
Yeah. And then I also think of Wisconsin, because they're another place. I feel like they're a lot like Minnesota where they love their sports teams, but like Wisconsin, they do have a hockey team, and I know they really want one there. And then I feel like they would just love lacrosse too. Like that's another place I feel like would love to have a professional lacrosse team.
Yeah, absolutely. My ears are too small for my AirPods, and I like love my AirPods, but my ears are just too tiny. So I'm like, please stand. Anyways. Ugh.
Oh, and I want the NLL to come back to Massachusetts.
I think that'd be huge. Honestly, I think it would work.
So, people would show out for that.
Yes, I do. I do know.
Any kind of sport they can get, they'll hop on it and then shove it in everyone's face. Be like, we're better than you, even if
they'll be the best team without.
Okay, this question said, and someone else added onto it. It said, "Who do you think will win the PLL championship this year, and why is it the Water Dogs?"
Okay, so
I did not predict the Water Dogs, but who knows?
That's I didn't either. Honestly, like the Water Dogs could. Like they got good at the end of the year. Like everyone was like, at the beginning of the season. Again, new team. But they just got Reed Bowering. And I think like their midi line with Zach Courier, like it's pretty lethal. Like they already had like a really good face-off like midfield line. Mm-hmm. And I think that the addition of Bowering will really help. So who knows, honestly. I think the Atlas are going to make a run this year just because I really had high hopes for them last season. And I think that I kept preaching this like on Goal Unextended like every week. I was like, their coach is the best because he got rookies and they're transforming the game and they know what they're doing and they're straight out of college and they're amped. But they just couldn't finish. But like now all those rookies are in their second year, so they understand the league, they get it. And if they can have a solid draft class out of college this year too, like I honestly think that they could definitely make a run for the championship this year. And I'm excited to watch them because they're definitely a team that like I wasn't super psyched about at the beginning, but then as they kind of progressed, I was like, you know what, they can be good, you watch. And everyone was like, they're not going to be good, and I was like, you watch. And then they almost made it to the final. So go Atlas.
I am glad you said that because that was my pick as well, actually.
Yeah.
Just because, like you said, a lot of people like coming into the season, like you look at them like last year and it's like, all right, they have all these young guys. It was kind of just like almost like a rebuild, it seemed like. And they had all these picks to build for the future. And they're like, okay, not this year, maybe a couple years down the line, like things will start to even out again. But I feel like by the end of the season, they found a really good balance between like their rookies and their young guys, and then guys like Eric Law to just kind of like mesh together. And like you said, like they weren't able to finish, but I feel like now that they have that experience as one under their belt, and they still have all these picks from all these trades they made.
Yeah, absolutely. And also Jeff Teague. So
yes. So automatically,
yeah, that's all.
That was the only argument we needed.
Right.
Another too early prediction. This is a college lacrosse one. I don't pay much attention to college lacrosse, so it's all you here. Okay. What men's and women's lacrosse teams do you think we are going to see playing for championships come May?
Okay, this is very early to decide this.
Yes.
Men's, I like when there's upsets, and I like when there's teams that don't really get a lot of recognition. So, I mean, these are two good teams. I think Ohio State, just because they literally pumped UNC and it was amazing to watch them play. And then also Yale. I think the Ivies as a whole, as a conference, kind of got the short end of the stick with not being able to compete last year because the league decided not to because of COVID.
Yeah.
So this is their first year back having full seasons. And I think that Yale has been building and building and building, and they've just been so like ready to go, but they just haven't been able to compete for 2 years. So I think finally they've got their chance, and I think they're just going to roll with it. And they've already had a really good start to the season. So I'd really like to see an Ivy League team, and I think it would be Yale. And then for women's, I really think Boston College is going to go for the 2-peat, like back to back. Charlotte North is just sickening to watch. Like she's so good, but she also has such good talent around her too. Like it's literally not even just her. Like I think their whole team is just solid. And then I also think Stony Brook is another team that they have just been fighting. Like Coach Spallina has just been wanting this for so long, and I really think that he's finally got his squad built to win a championship this year, or at least compete for a championship this year. So I think Stony Brook is going to make their push this year. And that's kind of my like early predictions, and mostly like kind of a little bit of my bias, but that's what I think.
Those are great early predictions. Those sound great
Yeah.
to me as someone that like all I know is like Charlotte North. I see all her highlights of like how am I the same
How?
species as this girl?
Yeah, I know. It's insane. It's insane.
Okay, circling back to box lacrosse here. Who are your top 5 box players you'd like to see play in the PLL but don't already play there?
My dad. No, I was joking.
Number 1
about this question. I was like, yeah, why not? Honestly, I kind of had like a hard time with this question, and I kind of like flipped it just because I'm so in the NLL mindset, and I was like, okay, but what about PLL players that don't play in the NLL? And I was thinking like Brian Costabile and like Jake Caraway, like rookies or like young guys. Because you look at the NLL right now and like the rookies are just taking off, and like Adam Charlambides and Charlie Kitchen are 2 guys that haven't played or have played very little box lacrosse that have picked it up and are just like playing really well and fitting into their teams quite well. And so I think if these like young guys could get into the box game, like I think that it would be really huge for their development as lacrosse players, because they already have the athletic skills. Like when I think of like field and box, like these field players are so athletically built. And in box, you can kind of be built like anything and be good at your position. Yeah. And I think like taking that athleticism into the box game would be so huge. And I think that it would be really fun to watch a lot of those guys play in the NLL. So I kind of like spun that, but
see, that question reminded me when I first started watching the NLL. One of the questions I asked one of my friends, I was why are there's so many like NLL players? Like I feel like it's a lot of Canadians that play in the NLL and PLL, but then I'm like, there's a lot of Americans that only play in the PLL. But I'm like, why?
Oh
like,
yeah,
why? I don't get it.
But then it's like you look at like Tom Schreiber, who's like I think one of the best box lacrosse players right now. He's American. Like, you know, they can learn the game and they have like the basic skills and knowledge. And I think that once you learn the box game, like look at the Chaos, like they're all box Canadian players, and they just have this way of playing that, you know, can combine the 2 sports and like won the PLL championship. Like it's just, you know, there's so many interchangeable factors that you can have with like these players. So yeah, I think it'd be fun to just like, it would be fun to think about, like there's so many guys, you're right, like there's so many that do not play in one or the other, and it'd be interesting to see like if they did, what that would look like.
And see, that surprised me because I kind of just assumed that for the most part, like a lot of them also played in like both played in NLL, PLL. And then I like went and looked at like, I think it was when we were doing the team like season previews at Lacrosse Flash, and I was like, look at the rosters. I was like, I know like maybe 5 of these names.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It's so true. And I think one positive thing that the US box lacrosse is doing right now is they're having, so obviously in Canadian we have junior lacrosse, which is like our pride and joy, like our Minto Cup baby, like that is everything. Like, junior lacrosse is amazing. And so the US is like, well, how do we get our guys to be able to compete at that level if they're going to try and go to the NLL and like not really have a ton of box background? So they have like these they're implementing these college leagues across states. So like they have Colorado, Connecticut, they're having like a Northeastern one this year. They have one in Ohio. And a lot of those guys are now kind of being kids that are being talked about to get drafted into the NLL, which I think is huge to see these American names, because I think, again, back to the whole, like, how do we grow the sport? It's like, well, we get both sides of the border to be able to play both sports at the same level. And that's just how you grow it. And I think that it's good to see the growth of the box game in the States, because you're right, it's like a lot of Canadians playing box.
Yeah, that was the thing. I was like, I don't know any of these names. I'm like, I guess I would. I never see box lacrosse like here. Yeah, I watch it. I'm like, oh my god, like these people are insane athletes. Like they could do anything.
I know, it's crazy, but yeah, it's fun, and I think it's definitely fun to watch like how the players transition. I mean, like look at like Blaze Reardon, who was like the goalie of the year, and then he plays offense, and it's just like they're so like what? And then like a lot of box goalies will play defense in field lacrosse, and it's just like, wow, like.
Well, that just reminded me when
more than I could do.
Yeah, when me and Kendra went to the game in Philadelphia, she was like, I think she saw the goalie come out or something. They introduced him. She, Blaze is even playing. I was like, oh, wait,
hold on.
Hear this.
Yeah,
I got news for you.
Yeah, he actually scores a lot of goals.
She was shook, which I was shook the first time I figured that one out too. So
I know. Well, it's like I found out so it was like this was like in 2014, I think, when the World Cup for field was in Denver, Colorado, and my family went down to watch. And Matt Vince, who's like 6-time goalie of the year in the NLL, like just legend, plays pole in field lacrosse. And I was like, why isn't he in net? And then I'm like, Dylan Ward, like, he's in net. Okay, that makes sense. Like, he plays goalie, but like not Vince. Why is he playing pole right now? So it's just interesting to see how they like change depending on the sport too. So
no, seriously, I'm like, how the heck are you this talented, this versatile that you can
play
right? Like different, like completely different roles in 2 different professional leagues?
Absolutely.
Okay, that leads me to this question. What positions would you guys play if you played in the PLL?
Oh, I don't know. It's so hard because I would like say defense, but then the long pull changes everything. Mm-hmm. So maybe a short stick defensive midi.
Okay, I like
play defense, so I think that's where I would fit in. Yeah.
See, I just put myself on defense. I was like,
yup.
I'm like, I could just stand there like a brick wall.
Yeah, no one's getting past me.
The best, like hope for the best, and then get smashed to the fucking ground.
Yeah. I love it. I'm here for it. Next like, draft.
I cannot.
To the Boston Cannons. No,
I'm bringing them back, the Boston Cannons.
Yep.
Because I'm like, I know damn well I could not shoot on any professional lacrosse goalie for the life of me. I don't care who it is. Yeah. Nope, I would not make one single shot, and I firmly know that.
So funny. Yeah.
Okay. What would you suggest someone new to the sport who doesn't know a lot about it could do to get into it and learn?
I think you're probably a great person to answer this question because you kind of like, went through that whole situation. But I think like social media, honestly, is a huge part right now, especially like with the PLL. Like I think the NLL social is a lot better than it has been in the past. Mm-hmm. But like the PLL is just very good about like answering little tidbits and having like info and doing like to the nines of everything that you kind of need to get that information about what the sport's about. But like even just looking up on YouTube, like you said, like you watched the Saskatchewan Halifax game just to see what it was like, and then you can kind of learn from there, and like following different players and people like us, honestly, that are just here to talk about it. Like we know to a degree what we're talking about. And so like, and I think like if anyone has any questions, like most people would love to answer because we want to get as many fans as we can invested in this sport. So honestly, I think like reaching out, looking at social media, and just doing some digging because there's so much out there that people don't even realize. So
yeah, absolutely. Like you said, like I feel like coming from someone who did like mainly just baseball for such a long time, where it is kind of like not like a gatekeep, like, well, kind of to an extent, honestly, they do kind of gatekeep that sport where like if you have like a question or something, someone's like, this idiot, like I worked in Pitcher List and I like would ask a question like, oh, don't you have paint to write about this? I'm like, I don't know every little thing. I will admit I don't know every little thing. Whereas once I was getting more into professional lacrosse, I had all these questions, like so many questions. I was like, I don't know any of this. Yeah. Where, like you said, like I feel like the lacrosse community is so, especially on social media, they're so like, please, like be a fan, like get into it. Like I'll answer anything you want. Like I remember I asked someone, I was like, what do I call a guy who takes the face off? Like, do I just call him a face off guy? Yeah. And it's just like little stuff like that once you like realize like, okay, anyone's going to answer any of your questions, the more you watch, the more you retain. Like, it's actually a lot easier than it seems, I feel like.
Absolutely. And I think lacrosse is an easy-ish sport to understand only because I think like if you're like watching from a defensive perspective or an offensive, you're like, oh, this is kind of like hockey, or oh, this is kind of like basketball. Like you can kind of find parallels with other sports as well, so it makes it a little bit easier to get into. But I don't know. Yeah, I think so many people, like I think of Adam Levi on Twitter who works with Lacrosse Flash a little bit as well, and like he just has a knack for facts, and I know that he would be more than happy to literally answer anyone's question about anything. Like he just like knows it. Like he's like an almanac of lacrosse nuggets, and he just knows everything. But like people like that you know are here to help promote the game and the players, like they'll answer anything in order to have more fans be involved in the league. So yeah,
that's the other thing. I feel like you don't see it in any league like this. The players are so accessible. Like they'll like respond to you. Like they like will interact with anyone. Like they want to grow just as much as anyone else does. So I feel like it's like so weird just to kind of see that, because like you look at like professional like football players or hockey players, and it's like they are unattainable. You can never speak to those people. But like lacrosse players, they're just like, yeah, that sucks. Like that game was the worst.
Yeah, that game was terrible. Sorry. Like, yeah,
like they just have so much personality.
Absolutely, yeah. And I honestly think that that's what makes it fun too. Like I think Curtis Dixon is the most funny human on Twitter, and he's also a funny person. But like just to get to see those personalities without being worried about like fines or you know getting in trouble for every little thing, like they're allowed to have these personalities outside of you know their sport, that I think makes it that much more likable, because then you get to know these people. Like I you know feel like I know some of these guys that I don't, and it's just because their personalities on Twitter are so lively that I'm like, okay, yeah, like cool, this is him as a person, and I like he's normal and he's funny, and like sure like I'll find him like good at lacrosse now, and I'll follow him and become a fan. Like you know what I mean? Like it's nicer when you get to have that like personable kind of interactions where it's like the down to earth kind of like celebrity type feel.
That's the thing, like you're able to actually see what they're like as a person. It makes it so much easier to be fans of these guys. Like you said, like Curtis Dixon is a great example. Like I think I saw him on Twitter before I ever even saw him like actually play.
That's funny.
Okay, final question. This comes from your uncle. Would you survive a winter in Boston?
This question makes me so mad.
Well, I was like, I feel like she's only lived in places colder than I
lived in Minnesota for 2 winters. Like I don't think I saw a positive degree. I'm Celsius. I do Celsius. But like I was like, are you kidding me? Yes, I could survive in Boston. I've lived in Denver, Colorado, and Minnesota for 2 years. Like, no respect. No respect.
I know. And then he said you were the cutest.
We're the cutest. Like, wow. I was like, I'll show you. I'll show you. And then I know. And then people are like, oh, so your sister's now the favorite, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, no, don't go there. She has her own godfather in the league, John Gallant, who does the between the benches for the men, and so she can have him. Okay, I'll we can divide and conquer. But no, it was just funny. I know. Well, I was like, really, Ted? Like you lived in Minnesota.
Lives in Minnesota? Like that's definitely colder than Boston.
Offended. I was offended.
Well, that wraps up all our lacrosse questions. Thank you for coming on.
Of course. I hope that I embodied Kendra as much as I
amazing.
I possibly could.
You
go Jaguars.
Amazing. Go Jacks.
Yes.
So where can the people find you and your work?
Yeah, well, I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Maki Jenner, and then I do have like my own blog called Fast Break with Maki, where I just mostly post like a lot of my work that I do. Obviously a lot of the features, and I do all the recaps for Lacrosse Flash on their website. So make sure you follow Lacrosse Flash because they post a lot of our content. I'm so grateful for. So yeah, definitely I'm on Twitter probably more than I should be in my life, but it's the place to be if you're a lacrosse fan. So yeah.
Thank you so much to Maki for coming on. So I did not have to try and talk to myself for an hour. I'm not going to lie. I took a break after I recorded that, and I was like, okay, I'm going to record the rest of it after before work, and my time management skills are just not there. So I'm going to save the hockey talk for next week. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I hope you have a great weekend. I hope you take care of yourself and happy Saturday and keep on sipping. I don't have anything to sip, but